We've had a lot of people here on the show. We've had goats, we've had trans men and women, we've had rappers, wannabe rappers, used to be rappers. But anyway, there was one guest on the show that was extremely controversial, both in and outside the show, and that was actor Kaalan Walker. Damaged Blue, you saw that interview where we talked about all of the serial rape allegations that were out there about him. And now that he's found guilty, what do you think looking back on the interview that we had?
Well,
I'm not
personally, I knew he
surprised.
was. Yeah, I knew he was guilty. He unfortunately affected some people that I know personally. I think the dude's a piece of and justice was served. It's just that simple.
And he was very poor at lying. There was something very creepy about him, and I almost feel like that interview that you did with him felt like a master class on toxicity, on gaslighting, on victim blaming. He did so many textbook things that a Disney villain would do that I'm just happy he's off the streets because I really walked away from watching that feeling like he was a menace.
Well, if you don't know who Kaalan Walker is, let me explain to you. He's an actor who's appeared in movies like 2018 Superfly. Well, he recently got convicted of serial rape and is facing 100 years to life in prison. Now, a jury found him guilty of 8 out of 11 counts of sexual assault that date all the way back to 2013, all the way up to 2018. Now, let me say this, because when I first met Kaalan, who came on the scene, at least in my orbit, with Superfly, there was something about him that was really weird. I remember, and even on the show where I talked to him about wanting to use Hollywood Unlocked to put out this alleged sex tape he thought he had with him and Halle Berry, which to me is just the most ridiculous thing. He actually called me and asked me how I could help him put it out, and I told him that wasn't something that we could do. So I always knew that there was something weird with him, and he was somebody I've never spent any time with. But I will tell you, part of my decision to interview him here at Hollywood Unlocked was I kind of felt like if somebody was interested and willing to go on record and be questioned and almost examined in a way when I interviewed him about these allegations, then it would be information that could be used against him in court, because this isn't a show where you get to decide what you do and don't talk about or questions I can or cannot ask. And I asked him everything that I wanted to ask. When he was here on the show, I think you said something, Blue, that was really interesting. He used or tried to use the platform just to gaslight his victims. And thankfully it worked, because it gaslit them right here to Hollywood Unlocked. And we were able to interview them by way of Kehlani reaching out to me and putting me in touch with some of those women. So what I want to do is show you just a small clip of when he was here on the show. Take a look. So what's your response to Sydney?
So my response is, I want to make it very clear that there's random people that I've never met before making allegations, doing this in my DMs, death threats, everything. I think after this situation was triggered, everybody feels like they can say that I did something to them, whether I met them or not, and make false claims on my name. So that was another example of the random people that said things about me that I've never met.
So you've
But
never met Sydney ever?
can't talk about that until my case is done. I cannot speak on it. The thing that hurts my heart, if innocence is shown, it just goes away. And the people that lied on the person has no responsibility. Everything just goes quiet. There needs to be accountability taken for when people lie on people and ruin people's lives.
But
It's uncomfortable.
I agree with you, but in those cases, in this case, or in these cases, these 15 cases, do you have evidence that you believe is going to exonerate you from all the charges?
My innocence will be shown once trial is over.
Well, clearly that wasn't true because he's been found guilty. What do you all think about that?
Um, Personally, I really have a disdain, a hate for this man. I hate looking at his face. I hate everything about his mannerisms. I don't like him, like, at all. I never believed he was telling the truth, period. But often in these cases, there's a lot of men, there's a lot of people in general that get accused of something so devious and they don't get a platform to speak. So even though I don't like him and I don't believe him, I think as a platform, you did your due diligence to give this person an opportunity to say their side of the story, because a lot of times in these cases it is guilty until proven innocent. In this case, he was just actually guilty. So there it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an age-old debate though, right? Like journalistically speaking, you're like in one sense, you want to give someone the platform so you can interrogate them and ask all the questions that have been bothering the public so that they can clarify. But on the other hand, you don't want to empower somebody to spread nastiness or to send that like thinly veiled threats or to in some way use you to intimidate
Hmm.
victims. So it's always been a debate when it comes to giving people platforms like this, especially with someone who is not just being accused of assault, but being accused of being a serial rapist. That's
Hmm.
really, really serious. I think the thing that makes this for me a lot more palatable is the fact that we also had the alleged victims come on to also tell their side of the story. So if anybody felt funny about him coming on, I would hope that they would look at the fact that we also had the other side, and so that we had both sides represented rather than just jumping to conclusions.
Well, what's important to understand is that Gayle King interviewed R. Kelly, right? We do interviews. We talk to people. We don't get emotionally invested in who we can or cannot talk to. I do interviews for a living. That's what this is. I unlock Hollywood. And I think we did a great job here by providing a platform to Kaalan to be able to look like a damn fool. I'm going to show you what he said about Halle Berry that I mentioned at the top of the show. Take a look. I remember we talked about your relationship with Halle Berry, and I remember you told me at the time that you allegedly had a photo of her giving you head. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
So you hooked up with Halle Berry, though, right?
First of all, let me make something very clear. I did a movie with her called Kings on Netflix. This woman has been nothing but generous to me. She gave me my first movie opportunity. She shared things about the business, what to look out for. She has been nothing but a respectful, loving person to me. I'm aware of the things that were said in the blogs, but I'm aware that if anybody see anybody with anybody, they're gonna make things up.
I'm talking.
But
I'm talking about a direct conversation that you and I had. I'm not talking about
I
what
don't
the
recall
blog
that.
said.
I don't recall that conversation. I don't recall that conversation.
Well, he probably didn't recall raping all these women too, but clearly that was all a lie. You know, the crazy part about this whole situation with Kaalan is that Kaalan has repeatedly proven that he's just not a good person. And I think that what's happening by virtue of him being found guilty is an important part of the Me Too movement. Now, Damage, you brought up something interesting because there are cases like with what Johnny Depp is going through with Amber Heard, where he's suing her for defamation of character because she said things about him that he believes were not true and that were unfounded. And now he's saying that she damaged his character. And a lot of people do get away with making allegations against men that aren't necessarily true. This wasn't the case, but that is the case in some instances. And so I want to show a video of Sydney, who was here on Hollywood Unlocked, Uncensored, and had a conversation about her relationship and interaction with Kaalan. Take a look. Sydney, you've been very vocal on Instagram. You're one of the few videos that I saw come out against KR. Tell me how you met him and what your relationship with him was.
So we met. So basically, I was introduced to him as a photographer through other models who had worked with him, and they were telling me you should go work with him. And at the time, I didn't understand that these were girls that he kind of was coaching, I guess, and like helping him get other girls to go to. So I reached out to him under the preface of like shooting and music, and that was it. And
you guys met on Instagram, or?
Yes, through Instagram.
Okay.
So I DM'd him, and then he responded. And that same day that the transaction happened, I went over to his house thinking that I was going to be taking digitals and talking about modeling and things of that sort. I was young, like I had just turned 19,
So you get to his house, and then what happens?
I get there, I walk in, and we're sitting like in this gym area. And he kind of like starts pitching to me the idea of prostitution without really using the words of prostitution. So like telling me basically like if I put X amount of money in and then I have sex with him and he records a video of me having sex with him, that he will send it to like all of these celebrities and then we'll make money. And I'm just like sitting there knowing something's wrong and going wrong in my head. Like I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure. Like let me get out of this very uncomfortable situation that I found myself in. So he's like, let me just give you a ride back to your car. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let me go back to my car. For some reason, when we get down to his car, I can't remember. I want to say there was stuff in the front seat, but for some reason I got in the back seat. And so I got in the back seat, and from there I sat on plastic covers on the seat, and I knew exactly what was happening from that point. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't call for help. I was in a parking garage, so I didn't have service, and I was locked in a car. And from there, I just kind of froze. And then there was a moment that I asked him to stop, and I told him I didn't want him to continue and I needed him to stop. And he told me he was almost done and to wait till he was done.
When you say continue, meaning at this point he was
raping me
inside you. Tiara, who was sitting there, was also, and I'm not going to call her a victim, I'm going to call her a survivor, somebody who got really emotional during the interview, recounting her interactions with Kaalan. Take a look.
How he was with me, and like even I have a friend that was 17 that he like raped back then, and it was a situation. And the girls that I heard later tell me the story is kind of the story that you said of him saying he was going to record videos
A
and
routine.
or send me pictures and stuff, and I'll send it to Drake or whatever. And
Okay,
try to go
so
on to-
Tiara, you met him. You all were working together. Was it working together in music or working together
No,
in
photos.
Photos. So is it the same story as Sydney, that he lured you in, or you sought him out to take photos?
No, I didn't saw him out. He tweeted me, because I already was a model. He messaged me tweeted me on Twitter. I was like, yeah. He's like, let's shoot. I was like, let's go, let's shoot. DM'd him. He said he worked with my friend. So for me, like she said, that's okay, you're
You felt
cool.
like you could trust him.
You're safe. I can work with you. He was like, okay, I'll come pick you up. I didn't drive. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then right when he's like, yeah, I'm going to give you $4,000 if I have sex with you so it could be real. And I'm like, why do you have to have sex with me to make it real? You could just lie, like, all the time. Then while he's trying to say, I'm like, nah. I was like, I'm going to need, I don't like that. Like, I'll admit, I've done sex work. I'm a stripper, but I've never had sex. I strip, I dance. That's a whole nother ball game. And I was like, nah, I'm not cool with that. Like,
I also think it's important to know for people watching that you can be a sex worker and still get raped.
Yeah, it's very much, if a person does not say, and this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, if a person does not give you consent, whether you're in a relationship, whether it's a stranger, whatever, if they don't say yes, if they're not, or in the act, they're saying no, you need to stop. That doesn't mean keep going. And I said no, I was crying. Like, I'm about to cry now. Like, I was crying while it was happening. And I said stop, and he did the same thing. Like, I'm going to keep going without a condom at that. And I felt very uncomfortable even after. Like, I made him immediately take me home. I kept texting him like, yo, I'm not cool with this. Like, I feel like it doesn't hit you till after. Like, yo, I was raped.
You know, I want to first say to Sydney and Tiara, you guys were very strong. You exemplified strength in being able to come on and share your stories. And I know that women, I saw the comments afterwards, were really empowered by you taking this issue on. What's your reaction, your thoughts, Damage Blue, to what you just watched?
For me, this was a little bit rough because I don't know if this has come up, but I actually know Tiara personally. I've known her for about 10 years. We have a lot of mutual friends in DC. She's eaten at my house. And she is a queer woman, right? She doesn't even, to my knowledge, even sleep with men like that. And she has such a light. Back then we used to call her Barbie. And to see her now after the assault, I don't think people really sit with how much it haunts you after a sexual assault. That girl is like, has a big personality. She's always smiling. She's always joking around. She's the life of the party. And to see what's happened since Kaalan has done what he's done, like, even though he's in jail, I don't think people realize that when you are raped, when you're sexually assaulted, it eats a piece of your soul. Like, a part of you changes forever. And so the damage that he has done, not just to these two young ladies, but to all his other victims who haven't come forward, it is immeasurable, and that I hope that he rots in jail. That was my first feeling. Seeing her like that is not the girl that I know.
I think another perspective to look at it, as a parent myself, I feel for his family, because it's no way in the world, I can't speak on somebody's upbringing. I don't know anything about his background, but it would be so troubling for me if this was my son, if this was my brother, if this was my cousin. This situation is so nasty, and there's so many victims. There's more victims outside of the actual act. There's people around you that knew you. Like, it's I'm sorry, I'm losing my words because I'm just so disgusted by what I just seen. I just really feel for those people that you interviewed. This situation is just terrible, but at the end of the day, justice was served, and I'm glad that those victims' voices were heard. And hopefully, more people that are doing things like this to young ladies will be sentenced and put away for jail for a long time as well.